digital revolution before it became universal created industries that now shape the world. Africa must now be studied with the same seriousness, not as an object of charity or sympathy, but as a continent in which significant economic value will be created over the coming decades. The African economic renaissance I speak of must, however, be different from the economic structures inherited from the past. It cannot be based simply on extracting raw materials and sending them abroad. Africa has contributed enormously to global prosperity through its resources. Yet, the continent has too often received only a fraction of the value generated from what it produces. This must change. We have cocoa, yet much of the wealth in chocolate is created elsewhere. We have gold and other valuable minerals, yet refining, processing, and advanced manufacturing often take place beyond our shores. We have bauxite, manganese, lithium, cobalt, and other minerals that are increasingly important to modern technology. Yet, our participation in the value chain land, yet we import food that could be produced locally. We process natural ore to the investors gathered here. I say that Africa needs your capital, technology, expertise, and access to international markets. But Africa also seeks partnerships that help create enduring productive capacity. When you invest in mining, help us develop our refinery and processing capabilities. When you invest in agriculture, help us to build storage, packaging, and food processing industries. When you invest in energy, help us strengthen local engineering and technical skills. When you establish technology companies, train African programmers and develop African managers. When you invest in health, help us build pharmaceutical manufacturing, diagnostics, and research capacity. Investment should leave footprints that go beyond financial statements.
Abusia and also so Yakupon Tradian Pontibrikis no the Adomi and Nefiada Ewo August Busumi Mudet also Edunu and Watche and Nada and Kotokohene Africa Business Investment Summit Yase Washe Nijume Diase or Honomoa or Dinsam Wodubi Titiru Abrimemu Hanom Ye Jumedi Anase Edwedi Ho and Shishaye and Hua Quanching na Ekoto woman num kwachere se Ghana ye bi enkwaban mu Africa se obi opeso oba na oni ebedi kasubo mu na oni edi djuma anoma na nura no na chese ye krabehwe na efe yie pa na nsam dodo no a na kotokohene edi etu edwa na ne mu no so na brada no so no odi kan akokasa edi akire wono e wo honom eno so no wokoye no okoka bibrebe enso so ewo honom ti apobo no de ebewie kwasi ewo honom na ni nyina mu no ya na yese emu nyina dane a na oda ne hu bi ahwa nya ese ho abewe na mame na mane enso so no etoda ya na nsaka kakra wom eniema daada kakra enti eba se no a na ekopoto kasa emu a ADUMASA TV atiefo se de esi ne motie nti no obo se san ba na brepem no yesan no besi nkonwa ni edani ni nyina sade ba yedie nimu ema mote ensamo a enu ada kotokohene tenase na ode betu ye nimu no ana ode tudwa ewodwumadi no ase no edini nyina enso so etimi ede ebremo enti yabai die montami chuku na yentumi emfa embremo na bibia enye kama Facebook live ena oniguso a wo hwe no ADUMASA TV, Facebook Live, ADUMASA TV, YouTube nso ADUMASA TV kronoa ena hoso so ubetumi ehu no na bibia aye kama
Je kasangen.
Kotokoni kase krobi fiangmani kotokingen.
Ma krobia irifia mani kotokingen.
Asante chanchoch mo champo no fungen.
Asante chanchoch mo champo no fungen.
Asante sesebo smeditien.
Asante sesebo smeditien.
Krobi asante na dwe kasangen.
Krobi asante na je kasangen.
Osechi chwe mi mo di nwa risio.
Osechi chwe mi mo na seju so usupanyi ni akaba kuma sika pop.
Obinya sebianko baby.
Obinya sebianko baby.
Men no tell if about them le fie kasangen.
Men no tell if about them le fie kasangen.
She wan in tough moje ngen.
She wan in tough moje ngen.
Wonderful daddy otmo champo no fungen.
Wonderful daddy otmo champo no fungen.
Wo so ni krowio smeditien.
Wo so ni krowio smeditien.
Aja kwa chale na dia sadungen.
Aja kwa chale na dia sadungen.
Akusi be kumblot mo champo no fungen.
Akusi bi okumblo mo champo no fungen.
Eja ko fi seye flampo no demle ferisi.
Eja ko fi seye flampo demle ferisi.
O say tutu mi mo di nwerisi o.
O say tutu mi mo di nwerisi o.
Why ne benya second nche wachi dan kwan se wan pimti kapo ba no.
Why ne benya second
flampo no demle ferisi.
Blagwa bakana ne flampo demle ferisi.
Me mo jabin do da ko ya dungen.
Me mo jabin do da ko ya. Hina flo flampo demle fao.
Wo saji fogu nyagwa singen.
Wo saji fogu nyagwa singen.
Wo kube dia to pleva demle fogu nyagwa si adumi achemera.
Jom.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I wonder whether you can endure another 25 minutes of my speech. After having been regaled with all those speeches. But then I consider it a privilege to address you at this important gathering in Washington, D.C. And I bring you greetings from Ghana, and then from a continent that stands today at one of the most important turning points in its modern history. We meet at a time when new technologies, systems, and the rapid emergence of young consumer markets are reshaping the global economy. At such a moment, every serious investor is asking where the next generation of growth will come from. Every government is asking where future industries will be located, long-term value. My message to this gathering is that Africa must no longer be regarded merely as a continent of future potential. Africa is already becoming a central part of the future global economy. And those who understand this early will position themselves advantageously. For too long, Africa has been described mainly in terms of its deficits. We have heard of the roads not built, the electricity not generated, the jobs not created, the capital not available, and the institutions not strong enough. These concerns are real, and responsible leadership must address them. Yet, it is equally necessary to ask what Africa possesses. Africa possesses a young population, immense natural resources, expanding cities, growing markets, fertile lands, strategic minerals, entrepreneurial talent, cultural influence, technological creativity, and a determination among its people to claim a different economic future through yesterday's problems while ignoring tomorrow's opportunities. History often rewards those who can recognize transformation before it becomes. Africa must now be studied with the same seriousness, not as an object of charity or sympathy, but as a continent in which significant economic value will be created over abroad. Africa has contributed enormously to global prosperity through its resources. Yet, the continent has too often received only a fraction of the value generated from what it produces. This must change. We have cocoa, yet minerals, yet refining, processing, and advanced manufacturing often take place. Food that could be produced locally. We process natural wealth, yet too many communities near that wealth remain. Our ambition must not simply be to export more. Africa needs your capital, technology, expertise, and access to international markets. But Africa also seeks partnerships that help create enduring productive capacity. When you invest in mining, help us develop our refinery and processing capabilities. When you invest in energy, help us strengthen local engineering and technical skills. When you establish technology companies, train African programmers and develop African managers. When you invest in health, help us build pharmaceutical manufacturing, diagnostics, and research capacity. Investment should leave footprints that go beyond financial statements. It should build people, strengthen institutions, transfer knowledge, and create industries that remain long after the original investment has matured. The best investment is one in which the investor prospers and the host society becomes more capable. Africa must also overcome one of its greatest historic cost and restrict commerce. Yet the future of African prosperity depends on our ability to see the continent as an interconnected economic space. Yesterday, when we were having discussions with Nana Uchosribo and Nana Pinton about why Africa cannot themselves to unite to nominate one or two companies to do that. And this is one of our predicaments. The African Continental Free Trade Area presents one of the most significant opportunities available to us. Its promise is not simply to increase trade between African countries, but in Ghana should increasingly be understood not simply as one serving Ghana's population, but as one positioned within a wider West African and continental market. The same principle should apply in Kenya, Rwanda, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Morocco, South Africa, and across the continent. An integrated Africa will offer businesses scale. It will enable manufacturers to serve larger markets, encourage cross-border supply chains, improve industrial specialization, and make infrastructure investments more commercially viable. It will also encourage African companies themselves to become continental in Nigeria or Ghana. Ghana is honored to host the Secretariat of African Continental Free Trade in Accra, and I believe this carries a special responsibility. Ghana must not merely host the institution, we must embody the spirit of integration by creating an investment environment. The continent's greatest resource, however, is not found beneath the soil, it is found in its people. Africa's young population represents both our greatest opportunity and our greatest responsibility. Millions of young Africans are entering adulthood with ambitions, education, generations. They want to work, to innovate, to establish businesses, to participate in global industries, and to build meaningful lives within their own countries. If we fail to create opportunities for them, we will create frustration. If we succeed, we would unleash one of the world's greatest productive forces. The difference between these two outcomes will depend largely on investment, education, governance, and the ability of our economies to create jobs at scale. A young person with knowledge but no opportunity eventually becomes discouraged. An entrepreneur with a viable idea but no access to capital may never employ anyone. A trained scientist without a laboratory may take their knowledge elsewhere. A farmer without access to technology remains trapped in low productivity. And an engineer without industry may become unemployed or underemployed. These are not merely individual disappointments. The technology companies should help create African innovators. The agricultural enterprise should help transform the farmer into a modern business person. The university should be connected to industry, and research should be connected to development. Education itself must therefore become central to our investment agenda. Africa cannot achieve an economic renaissance with educational systems disconnected from the needs of modern economies. We must expand technical and vocational education, strengthen science and engineering, invest in universities, improve research and encourage collaboration between education and industry. A continent that wishes to manufacture must train engineers, that wishes to enter the digital economy must train programs and data specialists. A continent that wishes to improve agriculture must train agricultural scientists and modern farmers. A continent that wishes to manage its own wealth must train economists, managers, accountants, and financial experts at the highest quality. Agriculture remains another major pillar of Africa's transformation. There's something fundamentally unacceptable about a continent with enormous agricultural potential importing substantial quantities of food while millions of its citizens face food insecurity. This contradiction must be overcome. The future of African agriculture is not subsistence farming, markets. We need irrigation systems that reduce dependence on rainfall, mechanization that improves efficiency, storage systems that reduce post-harvest losses, improve seeds, agricultural research, crop insurance, cold chain infrastructure, and modern logistics. We must also change how young Africans perceive agriculture. Farming must not be associated only with poverty and hardship. It must be possible for a young graduate to enter agriculture because it is profitable, technologically advanced, and capable of building wealth. When agriculture becomes a serious business, it will attract talent, capital, and innovation. Energy is equally indispensable. No country has industrialized without reliable power. Digital systems and modern agriculture increasingly require electricity. Africa's energy needs, therefore, represent both a challenge and a major investment opportunity, and our continent has significant solar, hydro, and effective policy to convert these resources into reliable power for households and industry. When power reaches a community, the effects are immediate and profound. Children can study for longer hours, businesses can operate more efficiently, cleaners can use modern equipment, farmers can store produce, small manufacturers can expand production, and digital connectivity becomes possible.